Hi, and welcome to this short introduction to the SAMR model. First question is, why would we want to look at using the SAMR model? A quick explanation is that it will help you to maximize the effect that new technology you are using or looking to use can bring to the learning experience. When would you want to use it? It's really possible to use the SAMR model before you deploy new technologies into your learning environments, during as well. And of course, even if it's after, it still can be a fantastic audit tool to look back at how your progress has gone. So let's actually go through the levels of SAMR itself. We're starting at the bottom here. So really in the beginning, we're talking about technology acting as a direct tool substitute. That's where the S comes in and really means that there's no functional change. So your technology is replacing some other task, but there isn't any specific change there. Maybe there's a few advantages, but if after say a year or so this was really the only level that you're at, you'd have to question whether the investment in the new technology had been worth it. Of course, the idea of SAMR is that it's a journey and that you then go on to use some of the other things that the technology can do to actually augment the learning experiences, and that's where we might be talking about a functional improvement. Comes along, there are some extra features that come into play. We then move to M for modify. At this time in the journey, what we're talking about is the possibilities of technology allowing for a significant task redesign. By the time you move to R or redefine, we're talking about the possibilities of whole new tasks being created simply because of what the technology makes possible. So we can see this idea of a journey there in the increased use of the technology's capabilities to help the learning tasks move up this ladder. And we're really talking about, these are the learning tools. The technology we're talking about as a tool that can aid the learning. Still, so far though, in what I've explained is a bit heavy, I understand, on the focus on the tool and the technology itself. We will look at another aspect of SAMR in a second though, but just have a look here. This idea of the bottom levels of SAMR being more really about the technology helping to enhance the learning experience, and the higher levels being more about actually we're starting to transform the learning experience. Now that's another good way to look at the different levels of SAMR. Okay, but what SAMR is really about is not so much focusing on those learning tools as the learning tasks. So really the whole reason we're talking about, can the technology and the tools bring some kind of functional improvement or help us redesign the tasks? The reason we're talking about that is because we want to have a focus on the learning tasks themselves. If you start to think about SAMR as something that can be applied to individual lessons or maybe to lessons across a whole week of learning, maybe to a whole subject that goes across a number of weeks or months, you can also apply SAMR as something that you aim to go on a journey across a year or even your whole sort of life of a particular career or your own learning journey in the education profession. It really can be applied across all of those different areas. And it's probably more accurate to talk about the different SAMR levels as being blurring or going across each other even. So if you have a look, well, this particular graphic I've deliberately blurred some of the colours and the lines in between, in that there will be some examples of classroom uses of technology that are not just strictly split into one or other of these levels. And we could even argue that the use of SAMR might blend in a little bit more like this. This may be a more accurate depiction of how things go, and the idea that, sure, we're using these learning tools, we're trying to work our way through to using the capabilities of the technology to move towards more of a transformation, I guess, as the SAMR model talks about in terms of the learning experiences. But really those tools, as we've said before, the reason why we're looking at them is so we can actually move the conversation to talking about, okay, how do they impact the learning tasks themselves? Sure, the technology is part of that, but it's that focus on the learning which is really the most important. And I guess there's a number of ways of looking at the journey that you might go on, again, whether it's across just a lesson or a subject or whatever sort of space of time. The journey could be a direct one, and this is sort of a traditional way, I guess, with SAMR of looking at the journey that you start very much at that substitution level. The new technology comes in, that's your initial understanding is maybe more limited of what it can do, so we start at substitution, and then over time we work our way through more advanced understandings of what's possible to move up to redefinition. And that definitely is a common way that our journey through using new technology works. But a journey could also look, maybe more realistically like this, where we start at one level and we sort of move up and down and around as we explore and work things out. So this may be a more accurate way to help visually with your understanding of how you might work through the SAMR levels. This particular one, of course, we're still aiming to get up to that redefinition level, but it's quite possible that this may be another journey that would be accurate for some people. And as you can see, actually finishes up more just at the modification level. And there may be a whole range of different journeys that are possible through the SAMR model. What I really want to emphasize is that it's not just about having to move all the way through to this redefinition level. Yes, there is some good reasons why you might want to do that, but I would suggest that actually looking at your curriculum, the needs of the students, and the learning tasks themselves is most important. And perhaps what is best for a particular learning task is not to necessarily try having students doing collaborating and publishing and creating, as they might if they were moving up to redefinition level. Maybe all that's required from a learning task is something lesser than that. And so you would be silly, I guess, as a teacher to try and squeeze too much in. Really, if you know what your outcomes that you're trying to achieve for a particular learning task, use SAMR to help you audit that and make those decisions, but then be okay with actually this task only requires us to go to an augmented level, for instance. Keeping in mind, of course, that there's a whole bunch of research around SAMR now, which is showing that moving up towards the redefinition level does actually have quite a lot of potential for improving student outcomes. So a lot of the research that Dr. Rubin has done shows that the grade level improvements can be up to 2 whole grade levels if students are given that opportunity to move up to the redefinition level, where the learning tasks that they're doing are much more about collaboration and creation and publishing. And of course, those are this kind of 21st century skills that we associate with some of the higher possibilities that new technologies are bringing to the classroom. So that's our quick little overview. Keep working your way through the course for a deeper understanding of how all these things work together. Okay, thanks.